I'm sure you would agree that there's nothing like being promoted into management to bring out all of your self-doubt and insecurities. You know what's even worse? Being promoted into a position where you have to now lead people who are older and more experienced than you. Listen, my friend, if you are currently questioning whether your superiors hired the wrong person for the job, or if you're constantly agonizing over what your team might be thinking about you, then I'm so glad you found me today. And that's because in today's video, I'm going to be revealing for you the simplest way to snap out of those inevitable new manager self-doubt spirals, some practical steps for building trust with your older and more experienced team members, even if you feel like you got off on the wrong foot, and what to do if you suspect that they're genuinely trying to undermine you. So before you go quitting because you feel like you're a hopeless case, please watch this video in its entirety because I know it's going to help you. You know, having worked with now hundreds of managers in my career as a leadership coach, this is not my first rodeo, and I can tell you right now that your struggles are valid and that you are not alone. Speaking of not being in it alone, I would say that in the top worries that come up for my students, what hits as a top 3 is this: why in the world did they choose me? And did they choose me incorrectly? To which I'll say this: the person that put you in this position thought you were good enough to be in this role, so you should trust that decision. Now, I get where the doubt is coming from, right? You're looking at other individuals and maybe you're thinking to yourself, okay, Mac, but still, that person has so much more experience and skill or an age than me. Why would they choose me? Because this just feels awkward. And I get that, right? While my personal experience with older and more experienced people might not be the same as yours, meaning I actually hired more experienced and older ones rather than being the manager hired after the fact. So my experience might be a little bit different from yours, but I can still put myself in your shoes, and I get why you would feel this sense of awkwardness. But even still, going back to what I said before, they chose you for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean you can't stretch in your skill set or that you don't have some work to do. But what it does mean is that they saw that there was some sort of alignment between your current skill set and your strengths and approach and the outcomes that they want that team to achieve. So that counts for something. But to bring something more tangible to the table, I'd love for you to take this actionable step if you haven't already. So in your next one-on-one with your manager, something that I really hope that you're having regularly, I want you to ask them this: as we move forward, what specific areas of strength do you see me leveraging to make a significant impact on the team and achieve our goals? Or if you recently got hired on, you could ask them, when you were selecting a candidate for this position, what specific skills or experiences did you see me bringing to the table that would be most impactful? You see, these very strategic questions will help you to hear straight from their mouth what you need to hear right now. And it can be what you anchor yourself to whenever you're feeling a tad bit behind the ball. But let's be real, you believing you're qualified for the job is only part of the battle, right? Your team also needs to believe it too. So let's start with what that belief should not look like before anything else, because I see it so often that I want to help stop you in your tracks in case you're doing any of these things. So it is not overcompensating for feeling inadequate by trying to be the expert at all the things and therefore overloading yourself. It is not by being overly concerned with emphasizing your position as a manager. It is not disregarding the concerns of older or more experienced team members to prove that you know more on any given subject. Because while you might think that knowing more and asserting your authority is the answer, know that these actions only further alienate you and accelerate the loss of respect. So the question becomes, well, what do, right? Well, you got to change your focus. Instead of concerning yourself so much with trying to do the things that gets them to believe that you belong, focus your energy on doing the daily things that will allow them to see that you belong. For example, view this entire experience as a learning opportunity rather than a challenge. Do you realize the growth that you are going to experience as a result of being in the midst of someone who has wisdom? That's a privilege. And in order to receive it as such, you got to embrace a learning mindset and look for ways to get their guidance. Number 2, you want to leverage their expertise as much as possible. Being alone in the process of decision making can be really difficult. But when you have a team member who is experienced, you can leverage their knowledge and their expertise to help you come to a decision faster, but without as many hiccups along the way. You know, at the end of the day, in order for a true relationship to be built, you have to be yourself. And I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you're not the person that enjoys the actions of overcompensation anyway. Now, yes, I'm sure you want to feel a sense of comfort in your role, and of course, you want to be respected. But like anything else, that takes time. Yes, your title got you in the door with a baseline of respect, but it's your daily actions that will actually earn you the respect like you want. And like I said, that takes time, and it needs to be rooted in an approach of sincerity and empathy rather than a forceful and ego-driven approach, right? To prove yourself. That's not going to work. So now the question is, what do you do if it looks like someone on your team is actually trying to undermine you? Well, I actually have a whole video on this topic that I'll link for you up here. But first, let's just unpack this within the context of older and more experienced employees. Although what I'm about to share can apply to anyone that is trying to undermine you, I want to talk about it within that context first. So first things first, let's make sure that what you are experiencing is actually undermining. Because so often in my coaching sessions with my students, we found that when we take a step back and actually remove the emotion tied up in this, and we consider like alternative interpretations to the behavior, we actually come up with an approach that is far more actionable. So for example, let's say you feel as though you are being undermined. I want you to ask yourself a handful of questions, such as, what specific actions am I seeing that is causing me to believe that this team member is undermining me? How else might I interpret these actions? I mean, are there other possible explanations for this person's behavior, like personal life challenges, frustrations, lack of clarity about maybe the expectations? Could my new relationship with this person be contributing to the misunderstandings or misinterpretations of their behavior? Is it possible that this team member believes that this is the way for offering a different perspective or criticism? And is it because of their experience and tenure as a team member that they have historically operated with a lot of autonomy or decision-making power? These questions are super important for you to consider, and it would then inform the next actions that you need to take. For example, let's say that it is the latter, and the reason for the actions or the behaviors that you're seeing is because of their historical context. Well, then you would be able to take the necessary actions, which would be to outline your expectations and norms, and then in a dignified manner discuss with them what your expectations are, as well as how it benefits them. Now, like I said earlier, if it is actually undermining, then you'll definitely want to check out my video here on undermining, seeing as though I shared a lot of tangible tips in that video in terms of how you can navigate that. At the end of the day, you can't control what others are doing or thinking about you, but what you can control is how you think about you and how you keep showing up. So please ensure it's the way that you want. Approach this like the privilege it is, right? Look for ways to build bridges rather than get spun up, and you will come out winning every single time. Now, at this point, you're pretty much equipped with some strategies to reduce the tension and get you out of your own head. But if there's one thing I know to be true, it's that regardless of your specific situation, you're going to need to get over your fear of difficult conversations, because you will inevitably have to have some eventually. And if you can't handle them with grace, integrity, and confidence, it's going to be really difficult to establish trust with anyone. So go watch this video next.